If you've just joined us, welcome to today's webinar, The Importance of Embracing Technology to Become a Digital Firm of the Future. I'll now hand over to CPA moderator Samantha Yim to get us underway. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's sponsor webinar, The Importance of Embracing Technology to Becoming a Digital Firm of the Future, sponsored by DEX and hosted by CPA Australia. My name is Samantha Yim. I'm the Research Officer, Policy and Advocacy at CPA Australia. We have people joining us from all over the country for today's webinar. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners from around Australia and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. I extend this acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us today. It is now my pleasure to invite Natika Munro, Glenn Castle, and Jeannie Savage. Glenn, hand over to you, please.
Thanks, Samantha, and thanks everyone for attending the session today. We're really excited to be bringing you this session. And I guess, what we want to be talking about today is really about, what the digital firm of the future is and the importance of actually embracing, some of the technology to actually, reach those levels. I think with today's session as well, we've got some very special guests that are on the line, which will hopefully be able to give you some practical insights into what you can actually do, to help yourself and also your firm to potentially move forward. And I think, if we think about, the accountancy and bookkeeping, it's still such a necessary service, in today's world, probably even more so, as we sort of start embracing technology. And we have, your sort of clients looking for you to actually how to innovate, how to stay on top of, making sure that they maximise the efficiencies that they gain in their business as well. And I think DEX has been a big part of that, probably over the past decade. Obviously, we've sort of contributed to that digital disruption in terms of how some of our solutions obviously make things a lot more efficient for you guys as bookkeepers, accountants, etc., out there in the real world, living and breathing this stuff every single day. So, and I think, as many of services, become a lot more automated, firms are actually, needing to look for other areas of their practice to actually help them stay relevant as well, about becoming sort of that digital firm of the future is the coin sort of phrase that we're using. So, as I mentioned, what we want to get out of this session is really designed for some real life examples of, how this is actually being tackled in practice, and then what you can actually take away on how to actually implement it in your practice as well. So, and we will save some of the questions to the end, but feel free to jot them down as we're going through the session, and we'll try and address those as we go through. So my name is Glenn Castle. So my role within DEX is really the product domain expert. So what that really entails is me sitting across what's actually happening in the APAC region, and what things you guys are actually asking for as to we can put into our products going forward. So it's really taking that Australian lens on how we can make our solutions better to help you guys out a lot more from your end. My background, I've sort of been in the technology sort of accounting space for around about 20 odd years or so now. So I spent about 5 years in practice before making the jump to technology. So been dealing with technology for quite a while. Now, predominantly it was basically, helping firms, implement new technology solutions into their practice. So as we sort of go through today's session, we'll sort of talk a little bit about, okay, well, some of my background and what I've seen in terms of implementing technology into the firms over the last couple of years, what does and doesn't work, etc. As well. But I'll probably pass over to Natika now for Natika to introduce herself, and we'll continue through the session.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am Natika Munro. I head up the accounting practice part, I guess, for the APAC region here at DEX. And as Glenn mentioned, my background is very similar to his, although I spent a little bit more time in commercial accounting and then moved over to practice. And that's where I fell in love with tech. So I was lucky enough to work for a really large ERP company in Australia earlier on in my career, and kind of got to contribute that and take those learnings into firms, so a top 6 firm in Oz. And part of that role was the digital advisory space. So I've been playing around in this field for quite some time now. And then then, you know, not so long ago, a couple of years ago, I made, I guess what we could say, the shift over the dark side, like Glenn. I moved into that tech space as well. So now part of my role is that delivery around how our tech can really be driven into accounting practices in the Australian market and the wider APAC market, and how the efficiencies can really be felt within the firm and within the staff that we have. So I'm really passionate about talent. I'm really passionate about tech, and then obviously creating really, really amazing firms off the back of that. So that's kind of where my experience will lie. So Jeannie, I'd love to throw it over to you and introduce yourself.
Okay. Yes, I'm Jeannie. I'm the CEO and founder of Cloud9 Strategic. So I've had my practice about 13 years. And prior to that, I was involved in operations and finance. Tech nerd, love tech. And I was actually involved in testing and developing cloud accounting software way back, 20 something years ago. Yeah, so I saw the power of it earlier. And when I moved into small business bookkeeping and we didn't have it at that stage, I was like, oh, it felt like a weight around my ankle. So I pretended at the time the emperor had clothes on, but I felt like the emperor's got no clothes, right? So for me, when cloud and when tech started to enter the small business accounting area, it was really exciting because it felt like the shackles were thrown off, and what I could do for my clients and my own practice was massive. So that's probably in a nutshell me.
Fantastic. So today's agenda, we'll pop that up on the screen. So today's agenda is really in part of three things that we really want to get to the crux of today. One of those is understanding the steps that are needed to embed that technology into your business. There's many considerations that need to happen before we, you know, commit to being a digital firm or we commit to digital adoption. So, you know, what does that look like? What are those opportunities that we're going to take on board as part of this adoption piece? What's going to work best for a practice or a firm? You know, as accountants, and I'm one, so I can talk from that experience. And, you know, what are the resources on hand that we do have that facilitation so that we can know that this kind of adoption piece is going to be successful? I guess the second is, you know, we're always going to face those challenges, and any implementation or any adoption or any committal, you know, does come with challenges. So the three of us today are going to raise a few of the challenges we've possibly faced in the past as well, and the ways we've overcome them, and they're not necessarily the right ways either. So we'll talk about some of those learnings in those challenges, in that challenge space as well. And of course, the benefits, you know, if you've put the right steps in play, you've overcome challenges, or you've tackled the challenge really well, there's going to be benefits. And we know, you know, all three of us here as panelists, we absolutely know the benefits of that adoption piece, and whether that's allowing us to be more proactive accountants, whether that's gaining efficiency within our firm, or whether that's future-proofing, like Glenn introduced to us in the introduction as well. So I'll hand it over to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Atika. So we're going to take a moment then to sort of work through, you know, some key steps in the process. But I thought, you know, before we actually jump into looking at what those key steps are on the screen there, it's actually important probably to understand, you know, and define, you know, what a digital firm is. You know, I guess when I was sort of presented with this topic and asked about it myself, I'm like, you know, it's going to mean different things to different people, because everyone's going to be at different stages. Is obviously the journey and obviously where they want to be, as well as I think is an important step, you know, in the process. But the things that I think I really take away from it, having, you know, sort of my experience in the accounting sort of software industry, the first thing is obviously around efficiency and automation. Like the solutions that we come up with or we embed within our practice or for our clients, like they have to be solving or some sort of problem, or at least making ourselves more efficient as such. Like it's got to be a benefit to us. Like we're going to be outlaying, you know, costs for these type of things. They've got to be able to give back to us. But it's about, I think, more than that. It's about taking it to that next step. It's really about, you know, connecting the dots between like all of the different applications that are out there. I think, you know, if you look at the Xero store nowadays, it's over 1,000 odd different apps. But it's a lot of the clients looking at, the accountants and bookkeepers, it's how they bring all of this information, together as well. It's making sure, you've all heard the word coined about, the app stack, etc. What does that look like? What are the benefits out of it as well? And I think once something is embedded, within the client within the practice as well, it's not just running with the bare minimum. Like we can go out there and we can say, hey, we're using cloud-based applications, etc. But it's making sure that we're getting the most out of them as well. It's like not just running with the bare minimum. So let's understand what they can and can't do properly. The second thing that I think for me about what a digital firm is it's really that next level about real-time reporting. Okay, without real-time reporting, a lot of the decisions that we're going to be making are really becoming sort of outdated as such. So it's making sure that we actually get those data insights into the system where we can then actually make, some of those decisions based upon what the data is there. So we're going to look at obviously how we can do that, what that real-time sort of data collection is. And, if you think about sort of Dex, I think has played a big part in that. Obviously, the receipt capture sort of side of things, making sure that we actually get things in a timely manner, that we can report on, our quarterly BASs, our year-end reporting. The accounts, I think, are a lot more up to date probably in the last 5 years than what they were 15 years ago as well. And technology has been an enabler of that. And we'll talk about, okay, well, how we can actually, potentially take that sort of stuff to the next level. I know, Natika, it obviously means something different to you as well. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on, what you sort of think the digital firm of the future means to you.
Yeah, it does mean something a little bit different. And apologies for my audio if it is a little bit bad. Give me a shout and I'll turn my video off. But for me, being a digital firm means having a level of accessibility. So whether that's accessible for to data from our clients a lot quicker, like Glenn has just mentioned, or whether that's our staff having more accessible to their clients in a more freely manner as well. That's really what I consider as part of a digital firm. There's things like being disruptive. Does your tech, and I know it's a bit of a cliche at the moment, but, does your foundational tech support you being able to be a disruptor within the industry? Can you take on new things when you are looking at the different sides of like different tech and evaluating that? So does your workflows support that kind of disruption as well? So that also speaks true to me when we talk about what a digital firm is. I mean, there's lots of other things, right? There's talent. Are we supporting our talent to be able to work from anywhere? That's part of that digital firm and that digital space. Are we giving them the option to really be anywhere? And are we tapping into a digital talent pool as well? Like, what are we doing to support that pool? So there's lots of things for me, completely, like I agree with Glenn as well, but I have a different kind of lens on that digital aspect as well there. And of course, you've got to take everybody on that journey. So, does your firm actually support that digital journey, or are you with a strategy, or are you kind of just like playing it by ear? So we understand that everybody on this webinar will be at a different, phase in that digital firm or that adoption piece. We might have people that are starting out, and we may have people right at that end. But Jeannie, I'll throw this over to you. How did you go about making that shift or committing to that digital firm approach?
Yeah, so as you've probably heard a minute ago, and if my audio goes funny too, please let me know. I'll switch over my internet. So we adopted early, and I think that is key, is to adopt early rather than adapt, because you have to. Hopefully everyone knows the Kodak story, and it's the worst case scenario around adapting late rather than adopting early. So that was definitely a big part of how we made the shift. The other part is definitely the way that I run my practice and the tone I set with my clients. So I like to think that I work a little more like a doctor in terms of I write prescriptions. So the tone I set is that I'm the expert in what I do, and my expectation is they listen and they trust me. Therefore, they're going to use the software tools that I ask them to use. And in return, I take their trust in me very seriously. I stand by what I say. I invest in them. Sometimes I sacrifice profit short term, knowing that the tech will help us get the results pretty quick. And then because we deliver on all of that, our retention is what I call a forever client. So we're looking for the life of their business. So if they're going to stay with us 5, 10, 15 years, then that sacrifice early on is worth it. But I do feel like it's about trading terms and the tone you set and being the expert in all of this, and definitely adopting early, carefully, slowly, but adopting early and being future focused and future proofing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think thanks, Jenny. And it sort of leads into, you know, the points that we've actually got up on the screen there as well. It's about understanding, okay, well, where that opportunity exists, and, you know, alluding to what Jenny was talking about there, obviously having the foresight as to where things are actually going to move to as well. So I think, you know, the big things for me is obviously that opportunity identification. So, you know, we actually at least need to understand, you know, what needs to change. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. For instance, like, it just be an opportunity. You can identify, okay, well, where things are going. Like, you know, we still speak to people out there that are manually entering invoices, and that's going to be fine for some people. But we obviously know that there is, you know, OCR technologies out there that can sort of assist with that process to give time back. But again, you know, it's not for everyone. It's a, you know, horse for courses type of situation. But it's just, I think, framing, okay, well, what that actual problem is, and then, you know, setting the right expectations around it as well. So whether that's, you know, for your own internal practice or whether that's with your clients, understanding, you know, what are you wanting to achieve out of that? Like, whether it's to give the business owner back more time, for instance, by automating some of the manual tasks that they're dealing with currently. You know, when are they wanting to achieve it by as well? Like, what sort of time frame are we looking at? Like, it's, you know, there is a sort of an argument as to not going too hard, sort of too early in some of these type of things, like taking a bit by bit as well, like not having to go a big bang, but take a more phased approach so you can actually get that process right as well. But I guess when we start sort of talking about the solution side of things, and Natika, I'd probably be interested in, you know, your sort of side of things as to what you feel is can be some of the solutions to that sort of process.
Yeah, I think there's a large amount of steps that we start to take when we are starting to, you know, investigate that solution, or what for us means a digital firm, right? So for me, most importantly, it's defining the objective. What are you trying to solve? What is the problem that you're actually trying to solve? But then not also boxing that in too much, because I think what we do as accountants really easily is we have this problem to solve, we want tech or we want something to solve it, but we want it to be solved at 100%, where that's never going to happen as part of like this digital process. So you've got to have a little bit of flexibility in that objective setting as well. I think most importantly, and something that people really miss out on, is how much time that we're going to be able to devote to the project. We know we're all busy. I've been in that same, you know, in that same place before, where, you know, people aren't necessarily KPI'd on this kind of digital adoption, or maybe it's not an interest of the partner of the firm or the director of the firm. So if you're not necessarily KPI or driven by motivation to do it, then there's probably a chance that you're not going to devote most of the time there too. So really making sure that there's a carved out amount of time that you're willing to put towards something, the adoption piece, I guess. And then who can be involved? You know, I was lucky I was a designated resource to a firm that meant that I got to focus on digital adoption. But, you know, who might be involved? Is it cloud champions? Have you recognized cloud champions? You know, do you have the resources within the firm? And I guess then it always leads to is what's the desired outcome, right? You know, we see it all of the time. People think that, you know, our tech can solve their problem, but without the proper time carved out and the proper like commitment, it's never going to work for them in the way that it possibly could, because there's some great functionality out there. The other thing, as I mentioned, I guess, is I was a designated resource. So who's going to investigate these solutions? There is an absolute raft of technological or digital solutions out there at the moment. And one of the most important things is you've got to have somebody who understands the big picture as well as the granular details. So, you know, some ideas around that is empowering staff with a project. There might be a person within your firm that really loves cloud or really wants to get into, like Glenn and myself, you know, the same kind of roles. So, you know, empowering that staff, but then also sometimes you may need that external expertise. And so that might be where you bring in another firm that has actually done it, or you might bring some consultants in, whether they're agnostic or the tech the tech consultants that actually serve the technology that you're looking at, and a combination of both is always going to be brilliant, right? There's also, you know, a space of understanding where to figure out your solution as well. So that might mean that you go and spend the time, you know, talking to peers. There's lots of peer groups that have done this in the past, or that are experiencing possibly the same steps that you're taking, or perhaps they're doing it a different way. So there's lots and lots of firms in Australia that have already done this. So events as well, you know, I'm sure any tech provider does a roadshow, any accounting software does a roadshow. Get along to those and start speaking to people. And of course, you know, the ability to review websites and have a look at those recommendations and case studies, you know, just talk. I think we do. We don't spend enough time or value the time that we get to spend out at these kind of events in learning what we can do for a solution, and then obviously understanding the options that we have in play. So that kind of then leads to that continuous implementation. And, you know, you first have that initial implementation and then the revaluation piece. And I guess that initial implementation really means defining the scope. So you've set your objective, you've, you know, investigated what's in the market or what's going to work really well for your firm. And then the next step is that initial implementation piece. And I think it very much lends to, you know, what is needed in that first step. So like in that first step of the solution investigation, like, do you have the time? Do you have the scope? You know, are you going to work with clients to achieve this? You know, one of the best implementations we ever had was when we actually allowed our clients to jump in as a firm and join us and say, hey, we're learning about this. Can you want to join us on this path? And the best case studies, you know, we got out of that was when we had clients on board with us and willing to learn as we did as well. Yeah, what about the reevaluation, Glenn? I think there's a whole big piece on that we're pretty passionate about.
Yeah, I think so. And it's, you know, it's really about, to me, keeping up with, you know, what the sort of technology solution providers, you know, are doing to their products and how they're sort of enhancing them, you know, going forward. It was even, I think this morning, you know, looking at some of the stats within the DEX product, for instance, like we can sort of see, okay, well, how are people actually submitting data into our platforms? And to me, I was sort of surprised to see around sort of a third of people were using the web application as a submission method. Now, to me, I would argue that emailing in and, you know, taking photos with your app is going to be a lot easier than putting a document in a web page and logging in that way. But that's just me. I think it's just, you know, highlighting the fact that it's really important to actually understand, you know, what are the software developers doing, and making sure that you're actually on top of the application, for instance, as to what is possible within the system. You know, you even think about talking about obviously DEX Prepare and our invoicing solution. Like, hey, we're going to have an e-invoicing solution probably in the next couple of weeks as well. So, you know, we've sort of seen from that aspect of things, like being on top of, okay, well, where is that technology going with delivering, you know, invoices digitally, etc., rather than, you know, OCRing and scanning them, etc. So, you know, I think making sure that you're on top of what's happening in your software space, making sure that you've got good relationships, obviously, with the account managers and that look after, you know, your business and that as well. And I think Natika touched on this sort of previously also. It is KPIing someone around actually staying on top of this technology also, because if we implement it and then not think about it again, it's just going to continue on as to how it was actually implemented in the beginning. So, you know, there's quite, I think, a lot to unpack within all of that. But, you know, it is just making sure that people are kept up to date, kept on top of what's happening in the market. I think Natika gave some really good examples there as to what resources that you can actually look at. But, you know, it probably leads us into our polling question that we've got now. So we'll put that up on the screen there. So I guess it's just for us on this panel, understanding, you know, what do you consider to be the most important step, you know, in the process? Is it, you know, the opportunity identification when we're looking at these solutions? Is it the investigation of it, or is it, you know, that sort of continuous implementation of that process as well? So I think we'll have the poll up for around about 30 seconds, give or take. I'll give you guys a moment to go and answer that question, and then we'll have a look at the results as to what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'd touch on, Glenn, that you just said also was leveraging the people that are at the technology solutions as well. Like, we're in most cases, you'll find that there's an accountant or a qualified, you know, accounting professional sitting behind those companies now. So most of our tech providers are starting to recognize the importance of that. So there's a lot of, I guess, skill and acumen that can be brought to and allowing you to learn from. So yeah, reaching out to someone like myself or Glenn, if you ever had questions, is always a viable option, because we're there to help with this. We're pretty passionate about it, actually. So
yep, and I think we've got the results up there as well. So it's interesting one, about 37% of people identified the opportunity identification, which is probably what I would have voted for too. I think you need to know where to start to begin with. We've also got the solution sort of investigation at 30% and continuous implementation at 33% as well. So they're all relatively equally weighted, which is an interesting thing to see as well. But yep, probably valid also. So we might move on then to the next session then, and I'll let Natika take over for this one.
Yeah, so I guess following that agenda item and schedule, what do you do, and like what challenges are you going to face once you have actually started to take those steps to adopt that digital firm for the future? So up on the screen, it's important to understand that we're always going to face challenges, and there's going to be different types of challenges that we do face when we do commit to actually moving forward with that digital adoption. So, there's learning and development, there's understanding the opportunity, and there's that resistance to change, because I think for any adoption piece or any implementation, there's always going to be that change management piece. But Jeannie, before we obviously delve into these topics a little bit more, I guess it would be great to understand what challenges you face or are still facing, right? Because we do continuously face challenges with digital adoption now that you actually committed to a digital firm.
Yeah, so it's really interesting seeing the poll questions and listening to you both. So the challenges we face definitely relate to the opportunity identification, like you said, the solution investigation and the implementation. But over the last 13 years, as we've, tested and measured and muddled and got it wrong and got it right, I guess we've learned more about that. So when you were talking about leveraging team, because one challenge is obviously, like you said, time. So for example, we identified a while ago we needed a tool like Precision, right? QA keeps me up at night. I was losing sleep. So then I found out there were tools like Precision, and I thought, okay, I've got to look at that. But it's a big thing, right? I implemented Prepare, formerly known as Receipt Bank, really early, and I did find that quite easy, although using it properly, with hands-free and things like that, we learnt a bit later. But with Precision, it was like, well, I know I need to look at that, and I know it's going to change our lives, but how and who and when? So it was about appointing someone on the team to do it as a project and actually single focus. So it was like, okay, we identified there was an opportunity and probably a need to do this. Then she went into the solution investigation. I do think leading from the top. So I was always, this is about tech first, the system behind it, and the people using the system in the tech. And then once we did that first part of investigation, just as an example, it's then, okay, well, how are we going to implement it? Which you've got to get, obviously, team buy-in, which is always tricky. And then the continuous implementation and improvement is always pretty tricky. So something we did there that works really well, we have a couple of team rhythms. We have what we call the week ahead meeting. Week in retro, where we look at the week that was and we look at the week ahead. But we have a Google sheet that throughout the week, the team can actually pop in there their bugbears, and a lot of that is to do with tech. So somebody did this and I don't think that's working well, and then we actually agree on, well, what's your proposed solution? And that's really helping us improve. And for me as a leader, because I'm not really in the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day, our tech allows me to collaborate with the team and do things without interrupting. If I think, like the other day I thought, wonder if the team is still 80% hands-free on Dex Prepare, right? And I'm like, because if they're not, and I want to check in on it, but I actually don't want to go and do the hard work myself. But having forums Like we use, say, Google Chat, which is similar to Slack, but we turbocharge it, right? That's an example of using tech really well and using all the features. By using that and just the Google Sheet, I can work with the team to continue that implementation. So I think they're our main challenges. Client adoption, yes, but I think we handle that really well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you speak around, I guess, that change management piece. So you touched on that briefly. I think that for me, in a firm and in this day and age, you know, we do make, and I don't want to say we make these excuses, but we always say we don't have the time. You know, how do we, you know, all these things that seem to appear like they're wants instead of absolute needs, but you've highlighted that they're absolutely a need to allow you to sleep. It is about that change management piece. And I guess that's one of the challenges that I had to overcome when implementing tech into a firm. It is really making sure that everybody understands the why. And we've got the buy-in. You said it too, Jeannie. You've got the buy-in from your staff. You have it on a weekly basis. Some firms don't have that in play by any means, or don't have the buy-in when they are trying to implement tech. And for me, it was really important that, yes, it was top down, like you said, Jeannie, but it was also bottom up. So along that journey, you know, I would bring in doers. And the reason why I say doers is because they're the ones that feel the problem at the end of the day. They're the ones that are sitting there processing the work. And then you have obviously people like yourself, Jeannie, who are managing and who see that blue sky thinking and can see other problems as well. So for me, it was definitely big around, I guess the biggest challenge for me was definitely the change management piece. And it was understanding who I needed to have buy-in. And that was a top down and a bottom down approach. Now that's not always going to work, but that's how I was able to move forward and bring my clients on in that journey as well. Glenn, what do you reckon the biggest challenge we face?
Yeah, I think
and how to
we've probably touched on a couple of them there, but I think like for me, it comes back to, you know, where that opportunity lies. You know, I think people get so focused on the day in and day out and actually running the business. It's, you know, they need to sort of take that step back to actually say, okay, well, what are the opportunities, you know, that are out there? So it is really, I think, you know, taking that initiative to go and investigate something as well. Like, you know, I think I'm probably a bit of a renowned procrastinator as well around, you know, doing things, but I think it's a matter of actually getting in there and doing something, and then, you know, pulling the trigger, but, you know, doing it in an informed manner as well. And as, you know, I think you spoke about that well, Natika, like relying on some of the peers and the industry resources and the forums and all those sort of other tools that are out there that are at our disposal nowadays. So you're not going in blind, like you've got that backing around, okay, or whether someone's, you know, the tech you're about to invest in is reputable or not. From my sort of experience and the implementations that I've done as well, like the resistance to change is probably the biggest one that I saw within a practice. I think before pulling the trigger, making sure you get that buy-in from the key stakeholders, obviously within the business as well. Like the implementation is going to go a lot more smoother if you've got buy-in and you don't have that person that is very anti what we're doing. You need to be able to get that right people on board, you know, to sort of drive it forward. So that sort of comes into ensuring, you know, that culture is right within the firm as well. So setting those expectations up, what the project is, when we're going to implement it, and that as well. So at least everyone's sort of on the same page. Probably from a practical side of things, Jeannie, I know you've sort of touched on, you know, how you overcome some of the challenges there with some really, really good examples, but is there anything else you'd sort of like to add that people can sort of take away from the call today?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I've been involved in needs analysis, software selection, speccing, and implementing and change management for well over 20 years. So I've seen a lot, including what I call the tears and tantrums, right? So we've talked about change management. Now, the bigger your practice or your firm, the harder that's going to be. You're going to have lots of personalities there. But as the leader, if you have a vision, I think sometimes, especially if your practice is a bit bigger, you've just got to get through the tears and tantrums to the other side. And I think that is actually about knowing from the beginning, what is the outcome? What is the destination, right? Start with the end in mind. I love that, right? So for example, for Precision, we had lots of reasons we wanted to bring it in, for example, so Jeannie can sleep at night. But also, I had an aim to, in bookkeeping practices, often our cost of sales are a bit higher. Our gross profit margins are a bit lower than accountants. And so I thought, just for a nice goal for myself, I would look at the ways that I could really improve our gross profit. And so one of the outcomes I wanted from Precision was that, right? So when we got that, and look, that was pretty easy for us. But another example of tears and tantrums years ago, where it was really hard, but I knew the outcome, right? I knew the problem was ABC, the outcome was XYZ, yeah? And once I got the outcome, everybody calmed down and was happy. And you'd be surprised how 2 weeks later, anybody that was struggling is singing the praises of the change in the text. So sometimes, rather than, we can't always appease everyone and please everyone. Sometimes we need to force a little bit of change, but the outcome, if you're clear on it, will speak for itself, just as a little helper there.
Yeah, I think just to add on that too, that learning and development, we haven't probably spoken about that hugely there, but that tech best practice, Glenn definitely touched on that in the previous slide as well. That's a really big challenge sometimes for us to focus on when we may not have the time, right? Or we're worried about putting time on the whip for that particular client. Like, where do we allocate that time if we don't have an administration or a budget for our staff? So that piece as well, and it's something that kind of obviously lends to a really big opportunity. So that learning and development, knowing the tech, allowing staff or ourselves the time to actually jump in and be in a position to adopt the technology or adopt our digital processes as well, will pay off in the end. It really does, and we'll talk about that in the benefits. But I think it's also realizing that the time constraint is a challenge, but it's something that pays off in the end if you do actually invest in that initial, development space. And of course, you're investing in your staff as well too, right? We've had this great resignation of late, and our staff are asking more of us, and we're asking more of our staff as well. So there's got to be a bit of give and take into that development piece too, and the personal development that this type of technology or digital adoption brings.
Couldn't agree more, Natika. So we've got another polling question up on the screen now. So the question is really around what do you feel is the biggest challenge when implementing new technology? So unfortunately, we didn't add dealing with staff of tears and tantrums on there. So we should have had a session with Jeannie beforehand, and I could have had that one added in. But yeah, like these are, I guess, some of the key sort of themes that we've sort of spoken about. We're just interested from your sort of side of things as to, what you feel, is the biggest challenge for those of you that have gone through, and implemented some of the new technology within there. So we've got about another 30, 40 seconds or so just to let you guys answer that, and then we'll move on to our final sort of section. Okay, just while we're waiting for that to happen. So the next section we'll start looking at as well is really going to be about, looking at some of the benefits that sort of come out of the digital firm. So, we obviously looked at things like the challenges and that are happening now, but the next section will move into, okay, well, what's the actual benefits of doing that? So I think we've got about 5 or so seconds left on that polling question, and then we'll put up some of the results. Yeah, probably no surprise on that one. Yeah, change management, 44%, followed closely by, I guess, skills and knowledge on 34% as well. And I think, that probably attests to some of our experiences and that as well, at least with dealing with practices and how software does get implemented. All right. So the next section, then we're going to look at, as I mentioned, around some of the benefits that derive from being a digital firm. So with this one, I think we're going to throw it pretty much straight over to Jeannie as to what you actually saw in terms of embarking on this journey yourself, in terms of your practice, what you guys got out of it, and how that all worked for you.
Yeah, look, in my practice and over the years, oh my goodness, the benefits, like massive. I remember even just to touch on a story from years ago, went into they're a public company using some tech really badly. We're going to get rid of it. And I went, hang on. Let me have a look at that. And their debtors department was unhappy, franchisees, unhappy, head office. And using that tech, I took a horrible full-time job with unhappy everyone to a part-time job with happy everyone. And honestly, without the tech that was there, because it had some really great little bells and whistles, without that tech, I would have had to find tech, and that was, a long time ago. It would have been hard. So it's just, the benefits are, I think, often time, money, data, like you said, Glenn, around, those three things. That's simplifying it. This is for us and our clients, and I'm really passionate about this. Also, talking about a digital firm of the future, that word future, this is about future proofing and not having our own Kodak moment. I also think it's tons of fun. And I think that's important, right? When we save time and money and get better data, we can do so many great things. Whenever we free up time and make more money, we've got more we can invest in our clients, and that's amazing. So there were those things, and I wouldn't mind giving a couple of examples. So with 5 years ago, I bought on quite an iconic restaurant here on the Gold Coast. We were Johnny on the spot with the solution, but we were by far their highest quote, okay? And so they had a bookkeeper 3 days a week. She was leaving, and he asked me to explain why my quote was the highest and maybe why I should use him. And I said, look, it's 3 days a week, but I actually think it might be more like a day and a half. And I'm not going to promise you anything because I don't like over-promising and under-delivering. If we're 3 days, we're 3 days, right? But we're Johnny on the spot. We've got what you need. We've got no lock-in periods anyway. So if you'll just trust me, and he was, so it's just hand it over. We trust you, do whatever you want. Within no time at all, because hospitality mixed GST, right? Using back then Dext Prepare, which just will always be one of my favorite pieces of software in the world, dazzling to me. Just using that, really, that was one of the key things that brought it down to a day and a half. Now, we were a short-term solution way back then, and we are still with them today. They absolutely love us. They're not going anywhere. So benefits, client retention, really happy clients, saving time and money for both us and our client. And another example that I wanted to share was that, oh yes, this one I think is so important, especially for accountants. So we used to cash code a lot, right? I mean, why do we need source documents, yeah? So, oh my goodness, the current economic landscape with cybercrime and subscription billing. So my clients thought I was really painful not long ago. When I went to them and I said, okay, we've now got a cybercrime policy. If you do not submit your document to, then it was called Receipt Bank, Dext Prepare, we are not going to code it in your accounting file, yeah, because you are paying for things you don't know that you've approved. Cybercrime is on the rise. You think that an asset is, a loan is paid out, but suddenly you've got some crime. The amount of money we can save clients by educating them slowly, we don't do it with a sledgehammer, but just by slowly saying, trust me. And I say, I've had this experience, right? I've paid for subscriptions for a year, and my bookkeeper has gone and, tried to help me out by just coding it from the bank. And I didn't know I was paying for it. So I promise you, all of your clients are likely suffering this, and you could, depending on the size of your client base, be saving them $100,000 or more collectively. So personally, I think cash coding, ongoing progress bookkeeping, not catch up, love it for catch up, in this day and age could be classed a little irresponsible, because I think with cybercrime and subscription billing, we need to start getting that real data in place. So that's just a few of the benefits. I could go on and on. Yeah. Oh, can I touch on precision? Because just the benefits with precision. So many, right? The team actually really like precision, which is great, because That's it is a kind of manager for us. So Precision is a lot around quality assurance. So it's taken manual checklists, it's turned them into workflows, and I was exposed to that kind of thing 20 years ago and found it dazzling how using a workflow is just so much smarter than a report or a checklist. So we can see, as you can imagine with bookkeeping, we're doing things daily, weekly, monthly. We've got to finish our end of month. We've got to keep all the files in order. It's allowing us optics on all of this and quality assurance and an AI manager that is letting me sleep at night, allowing us to performance manage when we have to. Yeah, so it was much harder before. So that really has improved we are so much more efficient, far less keystrokes, right? Every tap costs us money. So the benefits of Precision have been extraordinary, and then just all the other tech we use. We are careful. We're always careful and methodical as we bring it in. I probably want to be a bull at a gate, but we are careful. But yeah, the benefits really do still come back to time, money, and data, accrual data at our fingertips for our clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm incredibly passionate about that data visibility. I'm an old management accountant at heart, and through my earlier career. And now, you know, the benefits, and one thing that we don't have on there is actually visibility into our clients that we've never had before, right? You know, for most of us, we want to say that we're pretty agnostic. We might choose an accounting software, or we might be using certain technology. But if we are using pieces from the tech space, we're obviously not going to have that holistic view and that data. And if you don't have anything that supplements the ability to view what's happening in your client level, or even your staff, like Jeannie said, you know, that performance management piece, that's really, really important. And that lends back to like my point initially at the start of the webinar, is that accessibility, right? We need to be able to move. So one of the benefits of adopting digital is definitely having an increase in our data and using that to then future-proof, you know, advisory. Again, then it also leads to client retention. You're offering better services, and your staff are more satisfied because they're actually doing different things instead of just, you know, processing tax returns necessarily, or, you know, you can step into that advisory piece. So there's definitely benefits that are not on this screen as well that come inherently from digital adoption, and having accessibility to data is definitely one of those for me.
Yeah, thanks for taking. I think, yeah, Jeannie, I think you hit the nail on the head there with quite a number of points there. I think I could probably listen to you talk for quite a lot longer on those type of things. I think you probably sell software probably a lot better than myself.
Yeah. I'll take you.
I'm happy
job,
the cybercrime thing, like, it's a fairly basic. We developed it a while ago, a couple of pages. I'm more than happy to share it with Dex so they can distribute it unbranded. It's just a nice basic piece of intellectual property. It was hard to get my team to buy into, and they just wanted to be helpful in cash code.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, we've all touched, like, hit the nail on the head there with a lot of the different points there. It's really about, like, for accounting firms, is to, you know, how you're perceived to your clients, and that as well. I think, you know, Jeannie's given a lot of good examples of obviously how her clients perceive her now by actually, you know, embracing that sort of technology. To touch on the Precision sort of side of things, there has been webinars that I've sort of done in the past as well around that client visibility piece, and that, like, as an accountant myself, that is the biggest thing to me now. If anyone's interested in it, obviously take a look at maybe some of the Precision webinars that we've done previously, because we've now got the technology that we never had 10 years ago before that sort of cloud adoption, and that opens up so many different opportunities for what we can actually do with that real-time data, which I sort of started talking about to begin with. So with that being said, we might just jump through to our final polling question then. This is not a multiple choice one, so we're just really interested in, what do you feel is the biggest benefit to your firm when implementing digital technology? So it is a bit of a free text field there. We obviously won't talk about some of the feedback as we're going through this particular webinar session, but I guess, you know, from our Dex perspective, just really interested in some of the feedback that you have. So yeah, please.
So I think we're popping that answer into the chat box
Yeah.
there so that we can have a little look-see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that really, I think, concludes our session, just while that sort of is up on the screen there. I think if there's anything, Natika, you would like to sort of add to the session. I think we might bring up if there's been any questions sort of raised throughout the session as well. I'm not sure whether they've come through or not, but hopefully someone will read those out.
Yeah, sure. So while we're waiting, I think Samantha, if you can let us know if there's been any questions. But final thoughts is there's a whole raft of benefits. You know, we've all been through, and you know, change management. Most of you have said that it's one of the biggest challenges. Understanding change management and understanding, like Jeannie said, the end game and knowing the steps. Now, you may not always know the steps, right? But once you do it once, you do gain the confidence. And I guess that's the way we implemented it with our clients as well, to get them on board and to confidently trust, like Jeannie did, you know, just trust me, just know that I've got this, and then we'll learn together, like we did with some of our clients at the firm as well. And you kind of build this great rapport, and you have clients like Jeannie that stay with you over the time. And one of the best things was, you know, like I said to one of my clients, just learn with me. We were implementing a massive inventory system. You know, I had also got experts in, so they trusted that I had brought the right experts in, but it was more of a learning piece with me. And, you know, to this day, I've obviously left the firm, but they're still with the firm, and they're absolutely loving the visibility that they now have into their business that they never had before. So there's work, but allocate the time, and you'll pay benefits for sure.
Cool. Thanks, Natika.
Samantha, was there any questions that came through that we might want to?
So if anyone else has any last minute question, feel free to pop it into the chat box right now. So we have received a couple questions from our audience. The first one from John, and he's asking that does digital adoption involve distributor ledgers?
I'll let Glenn take that.
You get a palm. Yeah, look, I think that's a big aspect of it as well. It's obviously, you know, where a lot of the technology is probably moving into the future there as well. Obviously, it's quite early days with that, but I think, you know, we'll probably look back at this in 10 years time, and perhaps it's going to become the norm as part of that as well. So I think, you know, we do see accountants out there that are obviously specializing in those type of areas also. So I think, you know, yes, it's early, but yeah, let's face it. I think accounting is forever going to be changing, and the technology that we've got now within 10 years is going to change again. So yeah, absolutely. If that's something that you're across, John, then yep, kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. So another question on small businesses. So there's an audience. He asks, we are a smaller firm who cannot afford designated resources. What action can we take to move forward with a digital approach?
Yeah, I'll take that one, because I'm pretty passionate about this stuff from a talent perspective. So for me, just because you don't have the time or let's be honest, the money maybe to designate that resource, there's lots of ability, like there's lots of functionality, I guess, that people can draw on from internally in your team. We've mentioned, you know, going and seeking other events, right? A lot of the events talking about a CPD, so it's really going to benefit you in the long run. So you start to allocate and learn from going and talking to industry partners, and then obviously attending industry events, so events, you know, that CPA put on. There's also the ability to then encourage learning and development. So one thing, and I will say, next, we're very, very focused on our personal development. You know, I would say that is something that any business needs to have in play, or any firm needs to have in play for their staff, and succession planning falls part of that. So what's part of the PDP that your staff actually want to do in their roles in 5 years' time, in 1 year's time even as well, and see if you can incorporate elements of that tech and that digital adoption in that piece, because you might find that there is an accountant that, like me, didn't really want to be an accountant anymore, but loved solutionizing for accountants and for bookkeepers as well. So, you know, that piece then, you know, I was happy to take on that cloud champion role and be that person. So there might be someone in your office that you don't know loves tech, but would love to have a role like that.
Thank you, Nikita. That's a lot of good insight. So we have another questions. What milestone did you recognize as return on investment in committing to a digital firm? So maybe I'll let Jeannie answer this question. Any thoughts on that?
So the question was, if I understand it correctly, is it around measuring return on investment from tech?
Yeah, and what milestones?
Okay. Yes, so important. We don't pick up tech without looking for it to be saving or making us money. So first of all, there's a really obvious ROI. So the one, and I've been doing this has never changed since I started working in this space eons ago. Tech had to save you far more than, and in big business, we were spending $1 million a time at tech, yeah, but it was saving us more. So the first one is just the money, right? So if you're going to spend X amount on some tech, is it going to return you at least X amount back into your profit margin? If it is, tick, okay, we at least broke even. The next thing obviously is, are we over time going to be able to turn that into a bigger gross profit margin, or could be around operating costs, because we do both, so that you can say yes, okay, and you can measure that, right, in obviously in your numbers. But the other thing is the other return on investments. So that is beyond its ability, and this has definitely happened for us, to improve our gross profit. Has it freed up even more time that has allowed us to do extra things? Now, just an example, so we've been able to reduce our cost of sales more and more over time. And the other day, a lovely client in an industry hit really hard by COVID that is struggling to really recover, that's been with me 13 years the whole time, said, Jeannie, I think we're going to have to drop the bookkeeping. I think we just don't know what to do. We're really struggling. And because of how much we've saved and because of the cost of sales, I was easily able to say, you know what? Don't even think about it. It's going to be no charge for the next 2 months, right? This is a client that's invested in me for 13 years. But if I was stuck back in the traditional trenches with high cost of sales and everybody too busy to bring their heads up and breathe, yeah, could I have done that? So on top of that 2 months at no cost, just to give them some time to breathe and to give us all some time to go, okay, what are you going to do? Yeah, let's look at what you're going to do, because I've looked at your profit and loss. This could be a seasonal thing, yeah? I was also able to say, while we're at it, let's jump in and do some numbers strategy, because you haven't opted into that. Let's just do that. Let's do this. Let's do this. Come in, have a little this. When I say come in on Zoom, I'm all tech. But this is the ROI for you and the client that we don't often measure. So absolutely, you've got to save more than you spend on tech. But what about what tech allows you to do in the future? And when I said at the beginning it should be fun, that is fun. Helping a client on that level is fun, you know. I don't think that just doing tax and grunt bookkeeping is that much fun, but getting together with a client and asking, you know, and strategizing with them and just asking them powerful questions is really fun. So I just feel like that's the ROI that we don't always look at.
Yeah. So here are the last questions. So we already consider ourselves as a digital firm. So what else should we be doing? What more could we do? So maybe I'll let Glenn take this.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I think it comes back to, what we've sort of spoken about, in the session as well. It's just really like making sure that you're actually making the most of those particular solutions that you've got out there. So keeping up to date with what they are, what they're doing. It's okay to have gone and implemented something, but that may have been 2-3 years ago. Keeping on top of things and then making sure that you're actually getting those efficiencies out of it as well. And I think the last probably point I'd make there as well, making sure your clients are using it to their maximum ability and that as well. So getting that visibility across how your client is working, and then making sure that they're using it to its fullest capacity also. So it's just really staying on top of those things. But as we alluded to a digital firm is different things to different people.
So yeah, that's all the questions. And a big thank you to Nakita, Glenn, and Jeannie for the fantastic webinar. I'll hand over to Joss.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for a very informative webinar, and also a big shout out to everyone's participation and questions in the chat box. Please keep an eye in your inbox for the recording of today's webinar. As you exit, you'll be directed to the feedback form. Just to let you know, this is a safe link and we would love your feedback. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you next time.